So today what we're going to be going over, employee maintenance, adding employees, editing job codes, looking through the access levels, labor groups, and category reporting. We're also going to be talking about category maintenance, sales versus non-sales categories, and then product mix reporting. Hi, Tom. You're here. I guess I'm waiting for one more person to get connected. Hi, Stephen. You're in? Got two more trying to connect real quick here. Hi, Tom. Stephen? Hi. Hello. I think we're going to get started now. I was just letting the others know that what we're going to be doing today is employee maintenance, adding employees, editing job codes, access levels, labor groups and categories, and then category maintenance, sales versus non-sales, and how they affect your product mix reports. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by going into employee maintenance screen. Can everyone see my screen all right? All right, so we're going to go to maintenance, labor, employees. And whenever it's lit up blue on your screen, that's when you're in like an edit mode. So what you're going to do is you're going to type either an assigned number or the last four of the person's social security number, and you're going to hit the enter button. So it looks like you're overwriting the employee at that point, but you're really not. You're adding an employee when it's blue. So what we're going to do is type the social security number and enter a last name for this employee and a first name. And you can use the birth date, start date, address fields. Prefers QWERTY keyboard. What that is when the person is typing something to the kitchen, the keyboard shows as like a computer keyboard. So then job codes. Each person can have up to 10 job codes, 10 different access levels, and 10 different pay rates associated to those job codes. So one day I may come in and I may be a server with a server job code. The next day I might come in, I might be a bartender with bartender access. And then the next day I come in, I might be working as a manager. So depending on how many job codes you have set up for each person, what they'll see is when they go to clock in, they'll see all of the different job codes listed. What they'll do is they'll highlight which job code they're going to be that day and clock in. Back office security level tab, what that does is that gives them the access to this back office, Aloha back office. There's 99 different back office security levels, so you can assign different people different levels. So you might just want one person to be able to settle the batch. You might want one person to be able to take your nightly reports, one person to do price changes, one person to do employee maintenance, or that you could have a person that does all of them. So we'll talk about the back office security levels here in just a minute. So what you would do is you would just assign a start level and then save that employee record. The things that happen in real time in Aloha are adding employees and price changes at the item level. So once you added the employee, then what you would do at that point is you would just hit the little X button here, and then it's going to ask you to update front of house. So once you click yes, what's going to happen is that employee is going to be able to clock in right then at that moment. So what we're going to talk about next, I'm going to mute everyone, and then I'll take questions here in just a few minutes because there's so much background noise. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone, and then I'll take you off mute, and then we'll answer some questions here in just a few minutes. So we're going to go into maintenance labor job codes. This is where you would set up the functions for that employee. So for instance, let's just go to a manager or a server job code. So order entry means that that person's going to be able to enter orders at the front of the house. If you flag the training here, what would happen is this server would then be a training number when you attach this job code to them. So of course their tickets wouldn't go to the kitchen, their sales don't count, that kind of thing. And that's how you would set up like a training employee, by flagging this training. The way you know that you're in a training mode is their screen, when they're in their check, is going to appear to them in kind of a yellowish greenish color. So that's how you know the employee's in training. You can pretty much see it from a mile away. Shift required means that this employee is going to be clocking in and clocking out. This do not print job code, what that is used for is for labor reporting. What will happen is if this is flagged and you go to take your labor report, that person's job code is not going to show up with their hours. And I've had that happen a couple of times when people have added the job code and went ahead and check mark that. And what happens is they'll go to take a labor report and they're like, well, this person didn't show up. And so that's why, is because this was flagged. This can get checks tab. This goes in conjunction with a cashier environment where they'll be picking up others' checks and tendering them out. The ignore labor scheduler. Aloha has a pretty cool feature that you can actually set up a labor schedule. And what will happen is you can restrict clock in and clock out times based on that labor schedule. So if you don't want people riding the clock, you can set it to allow them to clock in like 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late, that kind of thing. And they can also, in version 6.7, actually print their schedules from the front of the house terminal, which is quite nice. This ignore labor schedule, this would be an override key for that set schedule. So if you wanted not to have your managers have to go with that rule, then you would check mark this flag. Cash drawer, self-explanatory. Whether the person is going to be responsible for a cash drawer or not, then that this flag is either flagged or not. If this is not flagged, when they go to assign a cash drawer, their name will not appear in the list. We do not use this item lookup button because if you don't have prices at your price level and they do a lookup, they can add items with a zero price, so we never flag that. Your group, this is your labor group that this job code is in, and then your icon when you see a little picture of like a tray, or you see a picture of a crown or that kind of thing when you go to clock in, it's pulling this from your bitmap folder and putting in the icon here. So if we go to into our bitmaps here, what that does is it allows us to choose a picture that we're going to use. So for example, if we are using icon number 2 in this case, so if we go down to our eyes, our icon number 2 is a server. It's got the little platter. So what you can do is you can kind of customize your job codes with maybe your cocktail server, or you've got like a patio person, or you've got a kitchen person. You can use several of these things, and then when they go to clock in, they'll associate this picture with their job code, so they'll know, oh, I'm a bartender that day, oh, I'm a server that day, or whatever. So that kind of helps them recognize what they're clocking in as. The table service tab, this is what the server's doing, or the cashier or bartender or whatever. If they're a bartender, they're going to have a check mark under bartender. A cashier, they'll have a check mark under cashier. Your check type, now you can see tables or you can see tabs and tables. Well, bartenders mostly just see tabs. Servers see tables. A manager would see both if you had a bar environment restaurant, so they could look at both tabs and tables. The bartender and the required tab name kind of go hand in hand with each other. Pivot seating, that's if you were separating your seats, like seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, so forth and so on, for food runners. So that way they wouldn't be auctioning off food at the table. They would know, okay, seat 1 got the pancakes, seat 2 got the ham and eggs, that sort of thing. Allowing tip out, we don't usually flag this. That's something that goes with a tip share function, which we would choose under our financial tab. Allowed to void own items, that's never flagged. Allowed to reprint own checks, yes, you can definitely flag that. Restrict from seeing sales, a lot of people want their bartenders and servers blind, so they can't balance and then figure out what they're going to do with that. Store collects employees' tips. What this flag does is if you paid your employees on their paycheck and they did not receive their tips at the time that they did their checkout, what would happen then is Aloha, when they do their checkout, it accounts for that. So you're not seeing the tip coming out of their cash owed. But it does go into the labor report as far as reporting on their paycheck. This cannot close button is only used very rarely in a cashier environment. That means the server cannot ever go to the close screen. When you hit the close button, that then becomes a print button at the bottom of the screen, and it's very rarely that this is used. Also, no cash transactions. That kind of goes hand in hand as well with a cashier environment. And auto return get checks. If you notice on the front page we had the can get checks. Well, on here, if you auto return get checks, what happens once again in a cashier environment, when you hit the get check key, you get somebody else's check, close it out, it puts that money back to the correct server. Equal payment, that's on a tender screen. So let's say somebody asks you, you bring them the check, and they said, we'd like to split this check evenly 4 times. So what will happen is you can use an equal payment. It'll come up and it'll ask you how many times you would like to split the total payment, and then it will split it for you without having to use a calculator. Prompt for order mode. What that does is it asks you when you hit the done button, do you want that order to go as app, no make, that kind of thing. Usually the servers and bartenders are trained to send the order modes back as what they are. although you can set this job code for like a to-go person. If you always wanted to go to be their order mode, you would just select the to-go order mode here, so they would never have to hit anything. It would just go straight on through. The use floor plan screen, that is if you have a floor plan created for a table setup, then you would flag this button and then tag on what your floor plan is, and you would get that from creating the floor plan in a different part of Aloha. Under functions, this team get check, where this rides at is in a like a bar environment. So let's say you've got 3 bartenders behind the bar and they all service each other's checks. That way if somebody asks for another cocktail or whatever, what they're going to do is they're just going to go touch your check, pull it up, add whatever onto it. So what will happen is you're basically pooling your tips till the end of the night on this. Transfers, a lot of people do not allow their servers to do transfers. Disable self-transfer, this is going to take care of that. And then the auto accept incoming transfers, you know how when you get a transfer you have to go to the working with tables screen and pick it up? What this does is it allows you just to receive that transfer without having to go there, which is not usually a good thing because you want the server to know, hey, you're getting the table from me, you need to deal with this. Under financial, this is for the checkout part and as far as tip share goes as well. So usually what we do is must declare tips. You set it a global percentage, and it's usually anywhere from 8 to 11%. It just kind of depends. The display tip threshold, if you click this message on, what will happen is if your employee tries to enter less than their credit card tips, then it's going to say try again, tip threshold not met, and you'll have to keep trying until you actually put in the correct tip amount. This is a new function in 6.7 as well. Under the auto declare charge tips if clock out does not occur. So this is a pretty nice feature. What this does is, let's say your bartender's tired, he goes home, he forgets to clock out. He's done his checkout because he's already counted his money, but he doesn't clock out, and at clock out, that's when you declare your tips. Well, let's say he completely forgets to clock out. What it's going to do is it's going to go back, it's going to look at his charge tips, and it's going to go ahead and put those on his labor record, which is quite nice. So you don't have to go back in to functions, edit punches, and put all that in. It does that automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and go to breaks. You can have unpaid breaks, paid breaks, or paid and unpaid. Usually a lot of people just use the unpaid breaks, and that also goes in the scheduling part as well. And this would allow you to have breaks with open tables. So I'm going to unmute everybody for questions. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. All right, we're going to talk about access levels now. All right, access levels are what you can do from the front of the house. So when you're going into your WWT screen and you go to your functions, you see those 4 little boxes. So you've got financial, you've got employee, you've got system, and you've got reports. So these are the reports when you're in there as a manager that you could either see or not see. This is where I talked about you can have several different levels of access. So one day you might be an assistant manager, you might be a shift leader, you might be a server, that kind of thing. We're going to go ahead and talk about manager and all of these flags that are either flagged or unflagged. So basically you're going to see restaurant sales, server sales, labor and clock in, manager flash reports, your payment report, product mix, your server flash report, which is your dollars and labor percent. On your financial tab, when you go in, you're going to see basically assign and delete promo, assign and delete comp, assign and delete gratuity. You can assign a menu, so if a guest comes in and they want breakfast and it's dinner time, if you allow that to happen, they can actually assign a breakfast menu to a table. Assign day part, if they came in and it's kind of like an assigned menu, but the assigned menu key overrides the day part. So you can have several different day parts. So if they came in the cusp of late night versus midnight, you can assign a day part to that table as well. Apply tax exempt, that's going to allow you to apply a tax exempt. View tables gets you into a view mode. Manage transfer tables, that's going to get you into your manage mode for transferring. Split checks, always going to be flagged under server. Reopen check, only flagged under manager. What this allows you to do is actually open a closed check and remove a tender from that. So I highly recommend that you use that with caution, and for new managers, I would do audits on that just to see if checks have been reopened and see what they're doing with those, because that's kind of a point of theft there, to give somebody that option. Reprint check, that's just going in and reprinting a guest check. The guest leaves, comes back, says, I really needed a copy of that check for my business records. You can actually go in after the transaction's closed, find the check based on who their server was, and reprint it. And that's for the whole day, even hours after the guest has left. Void items, that's just voiding items once they've been sent to a kitchen printer. Cash drawers, once again, that coincides with our job codes. If you have both of those check marked, the cash drawer you can self-assign. So let's say you come in and you want the drawer to open, you can actually go into the financial tab and assign yourself that cash drawer. Cash drawer checkout, that just runs a checkout on the drawer. So let's say we had 5 bartenders or 5 cashiers in that drawer. What it does is when you check out that drawer, it adds all of those people's money together and gives you one lump sum for that cash drawer. Item availability, what that does is you can 86 items or countdown items. So let's say you had 12 prime ribs for a night. What you can do is go in and put in the number 12, and so every time one's sold, it's going to count down until it's 86. Delete payments, that deletes payments off of the guest check. Adjust payments, that's going in and you can hit the adjust payments and add tips to a credit card from there. We usually do that from a button from the front of the house screen from the floor plan. It just makes it easier. No sale opens the cash drawer. Cash refunds, it's just self-explanatory. It is puts you into a refund mode, and then you re-ring the ticket in a negative way. Non-cash refunds, that's not flagged at this site, because a lot of times refunds are done from the back of the house through EDC. Credit card refunds, that's flagged. That's refund swiping the credit card at the time of the point of sale. Manual card number, that's if their card just will not swipe. You try and try, well, that gives you the ability to manually enter the card. Forcing an authorization. Let's say something happens with your EDC and you're in the middle of a transaction you can always force that authorization until you can get to the back of the house to stop POS processing. Under this tender group is, you can restrict people from taking certain tenders. So maybe you don't want somebody to be able to apply the guest checks to house accounts, or you might not want them to take $100 bills or whatever. You can restrict a tender group based on setting up the group for each person. So maybe you don't want your server to do house accounts, but you want your cashier to be able to do that, so forth and so on. Financial 2, override category limits. That's if that's set, what happens is on open items, what we've done is we've put sometimes a manager restriction on an open item, so only a manager can override that limit. So let's say a server goes in, they touch open item, and it's going to ask for a manager swipe at that point, or a manager number, and that's going to override that category limit. Pretty much the rest of these don't really apply. One of them's for property management and the other one's for membership, so we're just going to skip that. The employee tab. This is approve clock in, approve checkout, approve clock out, delete checkout, delete clock out. I know most of you have had to go in and do this. Server forgets to adjust any of their credit card tips. They go in, they check out, they're like, oh crap, I forgot to adjust my credit card tips. So this allows the manager to go in and put them back to a pre-checkout status so they can go ahead and adjust their tips. And that's the same thing with a clock out. If they clock out and they went, oh my gosh, I forgot. So what you can do is you can hit the delete clock out, and what it's going to do is it's going to ask you if you'd like to delete the checkout as well, if they've gotten that far. Many of you have used the clear password button. That is our friend. What happens is when you hit new password and your password was 123, and you put in change password and you put in 456, a lot of you think your new password is 456. It is not. It is 123456 now. So you've had to go in and clear your password. So that will get you into your clear password state, and what that does is it takes off whatever the numbers you put in with the change password. Open any drawer. That's going to be managers, maybe bartenders, maybe cashiers as well on a line. Adjusting a tip share. Basically what that's going to do is if you needed to, you could go in and adjust a tip share on an employee. Releasing locked employees, we don't run across that very often, so we just usually don't check that. A locked employee is caused by several things, so usually you'll call us and we'll release the locked employee. And once again, on system, we usually do not give you the end of day function, because sure enough somebody will accidentally hit end of day, and what it's going to do is in the middle of a business day it's going to close your day out, and it's going to pretty much jack up everything. So if you ever have an end of day problem, we usually catch it in the morning before you even get there and get it fixed for you. Query cash card, what that is if you had a third-party gift card and you wanted to look at the balance on that. Reroute, that's rerouting printers and printer groups. And that is access levels. So I am going to, does anyone have any questions on that? All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start talking about categories, sales categories and non-sales categories, and how they work in conjunction with your product mix reports. So we're going to go to maintenance menu categories. This is the hardest thing to teach, I think, and I get tons of questions on this all the time. The thing with Aloha is you can have sales categories. A sales category is everything. It's all your food. It's all your like hats or t-shirts. It would be merchandise or retail. It's liquor, it's beer, it's wine, it's food. Notice that there's a little check mark in the sales category. Well, that means that every item's in here. Now, what happens is when you add groups of items and you don't put them in a sales category, what's going to happen is when you go to refresh your data, it's going to come up and it's going to tell you, hey, you got some problems here. It's going to say it's not in a sales or retail category. Well, that means that, first of all, you're not going to balance very well when you're trying to figure out your taxes, because food is taxable, retail is taxable, liquor, beer, and wine are taxable. So if you're missing things in a sales category and your accountant's trying to figure this out, what they're looking at is they're looking at a dollar value that was sold out of that category and timesing it by your tax rate, and they're not coming up with the right amount of money because you don't have these in the correct category. So everything has to be in one sales category and one sales category, period. Now, you can have as many non-sales categories. It's like a kind of a tree off of a branch. So in my food category, I have got everything. Now, I'll have non-sales categories, like right now you see my non-alc beverages. You'll see like breakfast items, that kind of thing. So you can have tree branches coming off. Everything's going to be in food. It's going to be in liquor, beer, wine, or retail. So basically, what's happening here is you're making a food category, putting every single thing in it, and then you're breaking down what you've got on your menu. So in conjunction with your product mix report, this is how you get an accurate product mix report. Let's say you've added an appetizer and you accidentally put it in a dessert category. What's going to happen is when you come to take your report, when you go into your product mix report, it's going to look jacked up. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of look at a product mix report. These are our settings. So what you can do is you can include your non-sales categories. So all your non-sales categories are like your appetizers, your breakfasts, your entrees, food modifiers, that kind of thing. All of these things that say non-sales. So what you're going to do is you can select long name, short name. You can sort by your quantity sold, by profitability, by item number, or just purely by sales. Now you can drill down even farther into this, which is kind of cool. You can do this employee by category. So let's say you're running a contest and you want to know, hey, what employee sold the most appetizers, or who's pushing desserts? What's going on here? So that's kind of nice. So you can see this and you won't have to add it up for a month or a week or whatever. A lot of our Colton's restaurants use this for gift cards pre-Christmas. So they run contests. Okay, how many people have sold gift cards, or how many people have sold, Race for the Cure things or whatever. You can also sort by revenue center. So if you had a patio and you had a bar and you had a restaurant, well, I want to know how many appetizers I'm selling in my patio versus how many I'm selling in my restaurant. So you can kind of do that. And then day part, I want to see what I'm selling during the day. Am I selling a lot of breakfast at night, or am I selling nothing? And then basically your sales type by category. So you can choose what your sales type is. So order to go, as at, no make. So how am I doing with that? What are people ordering to go? So right now I'm just going to strictly choose my category report, and I'm going to display my price by my item price. Now in the options, you can check mark same item, different price. So what this does is it might show you the same item number 3 or 4 times. So the first item number, it could be like chicken wings, and it's going to show it was sold at $5.99. Then it's going to show the same item number, and it's going to show like $3.99 on one of those. Well, maybe it's priced at happy hour or whatever. Then it might show one at 0 price, and I get this phone call quite a bit where I'm not charging for these chicken wings. Why is it 0? Why do I have one that's saying $5.99 and one that's saying 0? It's because you've probably voided that item somewhere in that month or that week that you're looking at. The include none sold items. This is kind of nice when you're getting ready to rewrite a database and you want to figure out, what haven't I sold? What, because why do I have this in inventory if I'm not selling this product? So that's nice as well. So once you get all of these factors set here, then what you can do is you can save this, and then you'll just select your date range. So you could pick a day, a week, a month, a year, and then hit your View tab. And what that's going to do is it's going to sort this report beautifully by, like, see, all my non-alc items are all categoried together. My breakfast is all categoried together. Appetizers, salads. Looks like we're not doing a lot of salad, for a week. Why aren't we doing salad? Probably because it's freezing cold outside. That kind of thing. So basically, you can look at your sandwiches and just kind of arrow down here, and then this next page, and it'll just tell you everything that you've sold, how much you've sold, your sides, that kind of thing. And then the cool thing about this report is if you go in and you put a cost in for a shrimp basket, it's going to actually tell you the profit that you made based on how many you sold. And it's going to also calculate your percentage of sales and your percentage of food cost based on this cost. And a lot of people are using this tool and finding it quite helpful. And I'll show you how to go in and put your costs in here in just a moment. So at the bottom, what you've got is you've got a summary section that breaks down, look, okay, this is how much in breakfast I've sold, and it just totals up everything. So it's really a nice report, and it's very useful if you have your non-sales categories set up properly. If you don't, it's time to kind of streamline them and think about it and just branch off of food. You can have up to 9,999 different categories. Yay, lots of fun there. To put in an item cost or an item price, the best way to do that is you're going to go to Maintenance, Menu, Items, and let's just arrow down, for example, to bacon. All right, how much is my recipe cost for bacon? How many pieces do I get with this bacon order? Okay, if I get 3 pieces, I might pay 30 cents a piece for them, so my cost is going to be 90 cents. So that's where you're going to go in and put in your recipe costs. So keep in mind when you are putting in your recipe costs, I'm going to find something a little bit more complex here. Let's see. Cheeseburger. What's going to happen is you're going to put in the cost of your cheeseburger. So I'm not talking about French fries. I'm not talking about a side order with that. I'm just talking about the bun, the cheese, and the burger. Because what you're going to do is you're going to cost your modifiers out because you don't know, what they're going to pick on this as far as a side choice. So you don't really know. Your French fries may be more than a cup of soup or whatever. So you're going to price out those individually. So it's just going to be the item that they're getting, not the modifiers that are attached to that main item. And that'll give you what you need for your product mix report. And I guess that's going to be it. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody, and I'll take questions. Sure. No, there is not. Usually the way we do that is a lot of my bars, they're gonna pour 1.5 ounce pour, and if it's a double it's going to be a 3 ounce pour. So what they'll do is they'll set up like a regular vodka button and then a double vodka button. That way if you're calling in Bevintel to weigh your bottles, the product mix report kind of depicts what you're looking for there. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate everyone for attending this class and taking the time out of your busy schedule.